What did you lose the first time you said something and didn't follow through? It wasn't your job. It wasn't your reputation. It wasn't even the trust of the person you let down. Not really. It was something deeper, something quieter, something that died inside you the moment your mouth moved but your action didn't. A thread snapped, and you felt it, even if you didn't have the words for it then. You broke your own covenant, not with the world, with yourself. Because when you give your word, you are not just promising someone else, you are drawing a line through the chaos of life and saying, I will stand here. I will meet myself here. I will be here. And when you don't show up, when you flinch, delay, excuse, or forget, that place becomes hollow. A ghost of the person you meant to be. You wonder why you feel so fragmented now? Why your confidence is thin? Why your eyes don't lock as firmly in the mirror? Why your voice hesitates before it speaks? It's because part of you remembers. Part of you still keeps a record. And no one can lie to that part. Not forever. You can't deceive the soul that watched you promise yourself change and then watched you crawl back into old patterns. You can't soothe the witness within who heard you say, "This is the last time," and then counted the dozens that followed. And maybe that's what hurts the most. Not the failure, not the shame, but the silent erosion of your being. Because Epictetus said it clearly. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Not because foolishness is noble, but because truth demands sacrifice. You cannot hold your image and your word at the same time. One will fall. And too often, it is the word that dies. So you perform, you pretend, you tighten your say, smooth your tone, stay polite, stay smiling. But you feel it, don't you? The weight inside your chest. The silent resistance every time you make a plan, every time you set a goal, every time you say, I will. You don't believe you anymore. And that disbelief, that inner fracture, is not just insecurity, it's spiritual decay. Because the Stoics weren't concerned with how you looked. They weren't impressed by what you said. They measured strength by your alignment. Does your will match your word? Does your word match your walk? Does your walk reflect your nature? You may be invincible, Epictetus said, if you enter no contest in which it is not in your power to conquer. And your power, your only true power, is to govern your own choices, not outcomes, not applause, but you. The way you choose to respond, the way you choose to show up, the way you choose to keep your word even when the one is watching, especially then. And that's where the fracture begins to heal. Not with shouting, not with punishment, but with the quiet, terrifying return to the moment you betrayed yourself in choosing not to do it again. Choosing to say less and mean more. To make fewer promises and keep every one. To train your soul like a muscle, moment by moment, task by task, until it grows strong enough to carry the weight of your life. No matter what storms come, no matter who leaves, no matter how long it takes. You are not what you intend. You are not what you hope. You are what you do. And the way back, the only way back, is through the pain of realignment. Through the shame of self-awareness, through the fire of quiet responsibility. And you already know this. That's why you're still listening. That's why something in you is aching right now, because part of you remembers what it's like to walk without flinching, to speak and know you will act, to rise every morning and be at peace with the one person you can never escape, yourself. But that part of you is not gone, is watching, waiting, daring you to return. You can feel it now. The sting beneath your skin, the echo of all the times you looked away from yourself. Not from others, from yourself. That night you said you'd start tomorrow, that promise you made in the mirror, that vow to break the pattern, to stop calling, to wake up earlier, to eat better, to write more, to finally speak the truth. And then the slow fade, the small excuses, the mental gymnastics that twisted weakness into wisdom. I'm pacing myself, I'm not ready, I just need a little more clarity. But clarity doesn't come from waiting.
It comes from doing. From showing up messy, scared, unprepared, and doing it anyway. Because you are the only one who can live your life, and every time you abandon that task, something sacred dies. Epictetus didn't say this gently. He didn't coddle. He commanded, because he knew the enemy wasn't out there. It was in here, in the flinch, in the compromise, in the lazy little death of later. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. That's what he said. Stop explaining yourself to yourself. Stop narrating your good intentions while doing nothing. Stop mistaking thought for movement. Stop hiding your fear behind elegant phrases. Because nothing you say matters if your life doesn't back it up. Nothing you post, tweet, write, or preach holds any real weight unless your actions bear it out. You could say all the right things and still rot inside. You want to feel whole again? Then stop negotiating with your weakness. Stop shaking hands with your doubt. Stop pretending you can make peace with the part of you that betrays you can't. That part doesn't want peace. It wants your throne, and if you let it, it will sit there. It will make your choices. It will speak in your voice. It will run your life until your word means nothing, not to others, to you. And when that happens, life becomes unbearable. Not because of tragedy, but because of dissonance, because of the gap between who you could be and who you choose to be. That gap is where anxiety lives, where depression festers, where self-hatred grows its roots. You think you're overwhelmed. You think you're burned out. But beneath all of that is this: you're out of alignment. You're not standing where you said you would stand. And the longer you stay out of position, the harder it is to recognize yourself. But you can return, not with grand gestures, not with declarations, with practice. Discipline is not punishment. It's devotion. Devotion to your word, to the temple of your own becoming. And like any temple, it is built stone by stone, morning by morning, choice by choice. Say you'll do something, then do it. Not for glory, not for recognition, for order, for integrity, for the sacredness of your own internal coherence. Wake when you said you would. Begin when you said you would. End when you said you would. Keep the promises that no one else sees, especially those, because they are the bricks of your soul. And every time you break one, you leave a crack that spreads, not outward, inward. You've been blaming circumstance, waiting for motivation, hoping for signs. But Epictetus made it plain. First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. That's it. No more spinning, no more philosophizing, no more building a house of mirrors. Just do what you have to do. And if you fail, if you fall, then rise faster, without whining, without pity, without shame. Because shame has no place in a warrior's soul. Only result, only the steady, relentless return to center. Yes, it's hard. It should be hard because the stakes are high. This isn't about discipline for its own sake. This is about freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, the freedom to become who you truly are. And that freedom only exists when your soul can trust your mouth. When your heart knows that when you speak, action will follow. That when you promise, you deliver. That when you say, I will, the universe itself moves to meet you. Because you have become unshakable. You may not be there yet. That's fine. But you must decide today to start. Now with everything, with something. With one small vow. One unshakable word. Spoken only to yourself. And then you keep it. Not for results, not for rewards, for resurrection. Because when you keep your word, you don't just become trustworthy, you become whole.
And now comes the part no one talks about, the silence after the promise. The moment when there's no applause, no audience, no divine sign, just you and the task. You said you'd do it. You said you'd change. You said this time would be different, and now the time has come. And it's just quiet. No surge of motivation, no magic. Just you, your body, your will, and the eternal question, will you betray yourself again? This is the battlefield. This is the fork in the road that separates those who live from those who merely exist. Not in a blaze of public failure, but in this tiny, invisible moment when no one is watching and you still choose to be who you said you would be. You have to feel the cost of the lie before you can know the value of the truth, because it does cost you. Every time. Every time you say you'll do the thing and you don't. Every time you let that part of you, the part that bargains, that whines, that justifies, win. It costs you not in money, not in time, but in spirit, in essence. You become less you. You shrink, even if you smile. You fade, even if you're productive. You carry on, but something is missing, and you know exactly what it is. Your word is not a tool. It's not a trick. It's not a nice idea. Your word is divine. It is the line you draw through chaos and say, this is where I stand. It is the sword you hold against the enemy within and say, no more. Because there is an enemy. Epictetus knew. He saw it in every man who claimed to be free, but was still chained to fear, to craving, to the desperate need to be liked. He said, no man is free who is not master of himself. So ask yourself, and do not look away, who is mastering you? Is it the version of you that lives by principle, or the one that folds for comfort? The one that obeys the logos, the universal order, or the one that runs when things get quiet, hard, and holy? You say you're tired, but what if your exhaustion isn't from doing too much? What if it's from the soul weariness of saying what you don't mean, of promising what you don't intend to fulfill, of carrying the weight of 1,000 broken words? That's why you don't trust yourself. That's why the doubt grows louder than your dreams. That's why every time you try again, the echo of your own history tries to stop you. But you're not your past. You're not your failures. You are your next choice. So choose now. Not to become perfect, but to become aligned. To speak only what you're willing to back with your life. To promise only what you're ready to carry. To become terrifyingly honest with yourself, because anything less is betrayal. Anything less is spiritual suicide. You don't need to read another book. You don't need to wait for inspiration. You need to act now, today, with what you have, with where you are. You need to be what you believe, even if it costs you everything that once kept you safe. And yes, you will fall. Yes, you will break your word again. But now you know. Now you cannot pretend it doesn't matter. Now, when you break it, you will feel it. And that pain, that sacred discomfort, is your teacher. It is your way back. It is the refining fire. Use it. Rise from it. Forge a new self in its heat. A self that doesn't need to perform. A self that doesn't explain. A self whose word is the act. A self that doesn't tremble when alone because they know who they are when no one's watching. That's the gift of Stoicism. That's the legacy of Epictetus. Not ease, not praise, but sovereignty. The radical, terrifying freedom of self-rule. Because once your word means something to you again, once it becomes a sacred vow, not a disposable sound, then no storm can shake you. No loss can destroy you. No failure can define you. Because you will have rebuilt the one thing that can never be taken from you. The power to keep your word to yourself. And in that keeping, your spirit will rise, whole, unshakable, alive again.